Hi, everyone. My name is Maya Horowitz, and I'm leading Checkpoint's threat intelligence and research activities out of Checkpoint's R&D. And today I want to talk to you about the milestones of the threat landscape of 2020. And my promise to you is that none of them is related to work from home. I'm sure you'd appreciate it. So let's go. This is me in the new normal. And of course, it's nothing like my normal. So usually I like the outdoors. I enjoy hiking, being in the nature, exploring. And like all of us, that's not what I've been doing in the last year or so. But these are some of my favorite hikes from previous years. And if you travel, you know that usually the road is very, very long, sometimes tedious, sometimes very repetitive. But once in a while, there is a milestone. There is something that changes the landscape. And the same goes for the cyber threat landscape. Usually, the attacks are pretty repetitive. There are more and more phishing attacks, more and more malware, more and more exploits. But once in a while, there's a new type of attack that is sure to start a new trend of cyber attacks. So today I want to share with you some of these milestones that we were able to find with Checkpoint Research during 2020. So these are the 4 milestones that I chose for us for today. So we will start with a milestone related to mobile attacks and how they now attack in corporates. We will continue with cloud-native vulnerabilities that are discovered in public cloud, the nation-state attacks that start to lose shame, and of course we will end with the most noticeable trend of 2020, which is double extortion of ransomware attacks. So let's go ahead and start with the first milestone, mobile attacks, and specifically the mobile device management that is being weaponized. So as Checkpoint Research this year, we were able to find the first case in which the MDM was actually used as the way to infect all employee mobile devices in one enterprise. So it all started with this very large enterprise in the United States. And one day they are Checkpoint customers, mobile security customers. And one day, one of our mobile security analysts noticed that there was a spike in the number of download attempts to malware on their mobile devices. So during 1 minute, hundreds of mobile devices tried to download a certain malware called Kerberos. We, of course, wondered how come that happened, how an attack can be so orchestrated to download hundreds of samples in just 1 minute. We contacted our customer, and what we learned was that their MDM was actually compromised. A hacker took over their MDM and used it to, instead of installing, say, software updates, to install malware on all employee devices. Luckily, most of their devices were protected by our product, so they were left intact, but many of them, unfortunately, were not, and were actually infected with this Kerberos malware. So what is this Kerberos? These are some of its specs. So it's an Android banking Trojan. It's being sold as a service. So you don't really need to be able to code for Android. You can just pay some hacker to do this attack for you. And while it can download a second stage malware, it also has capabilities of its own. So it can control the device fully with TeamViewer, doing whatever they want on the device. And also, and the most important part, is that it can steal both credentials and two-factor authentication. It steals the credentials via keylogging, but also can steal two-factor authentication code through different apps like Google Authenticator or just from text messages. So this is a very severe malware indeed. So what were the results for this enterprise? 2 main results here. One, any credentials used by the employees whose devices were not protected were compromised, and they needed to change them, of course. But also, all employee devices had to go through factory reset. Now, you can understand that this is quite a big impact on the business, but also, I assume, quite a big impact on employee satisfaction when they have to reset their entire mobile device. So, as you can see, in this case, while many enterprises consider their MDM to be a security measure on employee devices, in this case, and as its name suggests, it's mobile device management and not mobile device security. And so in this case, the MDM was actually used as the weakest link and as the way into all hundreds of employee devices. So indeed, it's not enough as one security measure. And this is what is starting the trend, as we understand it, of actually trying to get to employee devices in order to find credentials to actual company assets. The next milestone I want to discuss is related to public cloud. So we all assume that attacks on public cloud are usually related to misconfigurations or to vulnerabilities in applications installed on the cloud. But what Checkpoint Research was able to find earlier this year was the first ever remote code execution vulnerability on public cloud. And here's how it unfolds. So we all got to know the cloud by now, right? So it's this fluffy thing on which we can install our own apps, run our own code. And the way it works is that each of us can work on it, and our different workloads, the workloads of me and of your assets are very well isolated, right? So if I run my own workload, yours can be right next to mine, but they don't touch each other, they can't influence each other or get access to one another. And that's the beauty of the cloud. But what happens if one is able to upload a malicious workload? And this is what we were able to do earlier this year. Upload a malicious workload that can actually take over the entire cloud, meaning that now I, as the malicious workloads owner, can see all your workloads. And not only can I see them, I can also edit them and interrupt your business and steal your data. So this is huge, of course, being able to take control over the public cloud. So we found it early this year and then worked with Microsoft as it was in Azure. We reported this vulnerability to them and helped them in closing this gap, patching this vulnerability. And the good news here is that as this vulnerability is in the cloud side, they patched it for everyone. There's no need for anyone to do anything. It's already patched and closed, and no one can exploit this attack. You can see that Microsoft gave this vulnerability a severity score of 10 out of 10, meaning that it was a pretty huge thing. So I'm very glad to say that we helped make the cloud at least a better place. But if we were able to find this vulnerability, more hackers will be able to find additional vulnerabilities, and they, instead of reporting it to Microsoft and helping in securing it, would exploit it for their own good. So you can see that more and more people are now understanding the technology behind the cloud and would soon be able to exploit it in their attacks. The third milestone that I want to discuss is related to nation-state attacks. So, of course, nation-state attacks are nothing new. They've been with us since the beginning of the internet, probably. And some of the nation-state attacks are pretty similar to cybercrime. So this is one attack that Checkpoint Research found very early in the year, in January, when a nation state or an advanced persistent threat was attacking government entities in Mongolia. Now, in this attack, they sent a phishing email with a malicious attachment that allegedly contains information about COVID-19. And of course, in January, it was super interesting to learn more about the pandemic. So, of course, everyone would open such attachment. And this was the APT's way to try and infect this government entity. So in this sense, nation-state attacks are sometimes no different from cyber criminals. But sometimes nation-states try to do activities that are more related to the physical world. Of course, this is not new either. We've all heard about Stuxnet and about black energy. And this is just one attack that happened a couple months ago when Iran allegedly attacked water facilities in Israel, trying to raise the chlorine level of the water. So, of course, this is outstanding. This is huge when a country, through the cyber, through the bits and the bytes of the internet, can affect the physical world and even, of course, take lives if people drink these chlorine-enriched water. But usually, an attack would end with this kind of move. But as we all know, in the battlefield, when one shoots, the other shoots back. It's never been like that in the cyber landscape. Usually, it's just one country, usually the stronger one, attacking another, and usually it's done behind the scenes, and there's no shooting back. But in this case, and this is the milestone here, Israel did shoot back, at least according to reports. So just a few days after the alleged Iranian attack, Israel attacked a port in Iran, and it took down its entire IT infrastructure. What it meant is that the port could not control the ships and the trucks that are getting to the port, and the entire traffic was stopped for a few days. So you can think about the chaos around the port, but also about the financial influence of such an attack. So in this case, and this is the milestone here, when the entire battlefield is actually becoming virtual. But from the virtual world, it translates into the physical world. You don't need to go and stop the trucks physically. You can just do it through the internet. And this for me was a super interesting attack that happened this year. Now, the last milestone that I want to discuss is, of course, something that we hear about in the news on a daily basis, but it only just began a few months ago. And this is, of course, the double extortion of ransomware operators. So ransomware started about 5 years ago as a trend with CryptoLocker, CryptoWall, and their other friends. And it started with something that tried to get to PCs and ask for, say, $100 in ransom. Then it also started getting to servers, to cloud environments. Of course, the huge ransomware attack in WannaCry. And then they moved more to, say, boutique attacks, infecting very large companies and asking for bigger ransom. But the milestone here is that the ransomware is no longer just about encrypting files. So what is it about? It starts with breaching a company. Breaching meaning getting to one PC and from there starting to move laterally around the network, getting to more and more assets, databases, servers, and infecting them with malware. The next stage, and that's the unique part here, is stealing data. So it's not enough to just breach the company. They also try to take as much data as they can and leak it out of the network into their own servers. So it's gigabytes of data containing every secret that the company has, its IP, customers' PII, the more the more secret the data is, the better. The more private it is, the better. Then the third step is just like with traditional ransomware, encrypting the data and then asking for a ransom. But now there's a double incentive for a company to pay the ransom, because it's no longer just in order to get the files back. It's not enough if you have your backup that's left intact, because now the threat is bigger. The threat actors actually threaten to publish the company's data online. And it might also expose a company to GDPR fines, because, of course, it might contain private information of its customers. And so threat actors can ask, and many organizations are willing to pay, ransom of over $1 million. And that's something that we see every single day. This is one example of one such ransomware that's called Maze. It actually just declared that it's about to stop its operation, but this is their website on the clear web. What they do here is that they have their list of clients being new victims of the ransomware from which they actually stole the data. They ask for the ransom, and on the other side of the screen, you can see the data dumps. So these are the victims who were not willing to pay the ransom, and their data is now available for anyone who wants to download it. So you can see that it's on the clear web. There's no shame around it. And these are some of the recent examples to such attacks on huge companies like LG, Xerox, Canon, Software, AG, and many, many more. But the good news here is that they will not attack any healthcare organization. And you can see here the declaration from one of the ransomware owners saying that due to the pandemic, they would not attack any health-related organizations or institutes. Well, they said it, but that's not what actually happens. So many hospitals were infected with such ransomware. Many institutes working on a vaccine were infected. People's COVID-19 test results were leaked on the internet. And in fact, the word is that the vaccine just may be delayed due to such attacks. So this is the impact here is very, very large, and you can also see this this alert coming out of authorities in the States saying that there's a spike in number of ransomware attacks on health-related organizations in the States. You can also see here that the statistics coming out of Checkpoint Research. And in fact, we are seeing the same trend all over the world with health-related organizations being targeted in ransomware attacks. So this trend is probably here to stay just because it works, just because in one such attack, a threat actor can gain millions of dollars because organizations are willing to pay for all their data. So this ends my 4 milestones for 2020. Of course, there were more milestones and trends, and the year is not over, and I'm sure there are some more to come, but these are just the few that I thought were going to have a really big impact on the cyber threat landscape of the future. If you want to learn more about these trends and others, you can download Checkpoint's mid-year security report that was written by Checkpoint research analysts, and it includes more information about these trends, these milestones, and more trends and statistics that we're seeing globally and in each region. And of course, in January, we will be releasing our annual report that will include many more milestones that the year still holds for us. So thank you everyone for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.